The ocean was silent that night, as if holding its breath. The Aphrodite, Damian Roth's luxury yacht, drifted through the inky blackness off the coast of Croatia, its engines humming like a distant threat. No moon, no stars, just waves licking at the hull and a cold wind that stung the face. Inside, the lights were dimmed, casting long shadows across velvet furniture and polished brass railings. Clare Whitmore stood barefoot on the deck, one hand resting on the slight curve of her stomach. 7 months. She had named him in her heart, already, Jacob. But she had not told Damian, not anymore. Words had long since lost their place in their marriage. In the beginning, he had whispered dreams into her ear beneath candlelight. Now he spoke only in dismissals and sighs. Behind her, the glass doors opened. "You should not be out here." Damian's voice was low, indifferent. Not concern, just a statement. Clare did not turn. "Fresh air helps me sleep. You have not slept in weeks." "I wonder why." A pause. The tension between them coiled like wire. Damian stepped closer. He always walked like he owned the ground under his feet. "We leave for Geneva in the morning. I want no complications." Clare turned then slowly. "Is that what I am to you now? A complication?" His eyes were unreadable, fixed on her belly. "This was never the plan." "No," she whispered. "Your plan was control. This baby ruined that, didn't it?" His jaw clenched. "Stop pretending like you did not know what this was. You wanted the life, the money, the name." Clare laughed softly, bitterly. "I wanted you, Damian, before you became this machine." The wind howled between them. "I cannot do this anymore," he said. "You knew how fragile things were. Investors are nervous. If you come home with me, like this, everything falls apart." "And if I do not?" she asked. He did not answer. Clare looked out at the water, dark, endless. "What are you going to do, Damian?" He stepped closer. Too close. "I will protect what I built." His hand moved fast, faster than she could understand. A shove, a cry, a splash. The water swallowed her like a secret. For a moment, silence returned to the night. Then Damian's breath quickened. He looked around. No crew nearby, no witnesses. Just the wind and the waves. He stood there for several seconds, staring into the blackness. Then he turned, adjusted his cufflinks, and walked back inside. At sunrise, the Aphrodite docked in Dubrovnik. The staff, trained, silent, loyal, reported that Mrs. Whitmore had been restless. She must have fallen overboard. A tragic accident. Damian made a call to his publicist. "Prepare a statement. We lost Clare at sea. Make it sound heartbreaking." He did not mention the bruise on his forearm or the faint scratches on his wrist. He made sure the cameras would only see the tear-streaked husband returning home alone. By noon, news headlines across Europe read, "Billionaire's wife lost at sea. In tragic boating accident, tech mogul Damian Roth devastated by sudden loss." Of pregnant wife, a candlelight vigil was held the next day. Damian did not attend. Far below the surface, the sea stirred, and far away, along a rugged stretch of hidden coastline, something moved. Something alive. Something breathing. Clare's fingers gripped the sharp rock as she crawled from the surf, coughing seawater and blood. Her eyes opened to the gray light of dawn. She was alive. But the woman who stood on that shore, drenched and shaking, was no longer the same. She looked out toward the horizon, toward the place where her life had ended, and something colder, fiercer, had begun. And in that silence she made a promise. He would pay. The sea has a way of keeping secrets, until it decides not to. By the time local authorities arrived at the port of Dubrovnik, the Aphrodite had already been scrubbed, polished, and wiped of anything that might contradict the official story. Damian Roth stood at the center of the media storm, flanked by 2 security guards and a trembling PR agent. His designer suit was slightly wrinkled, his jaw tight, his eyes dry. I lost my wife," He told the cameras. She was everything to me. The sea took her, and I could do nothing. I failed her. The footage was played on every major network within hours. Tragedy at sea. Clare Whitmore, 7 months pregnant, presumed dead. Viewers wept. Headlines praised Damian's strength. But in high-definition slow motion, some noticed a purplish mark on his cheekbone, barely concealed by foundation, and the way his hand never trembled once. Farther down the coast, where no cameras lingered, a different version of the story drifted into the net of an old man with salt in his beard and suspicion in his bones. Captain Jurek had been fishing those waters for over 40 years. His boat, Maria's Whisper, creaked with every gust of wind, but it still knew its way home. On the night of Clare's disappearance, he had anchored near the cliffs to wait out the swell. That was when he saw the Aphrodite, well-lit, elegant, and gliding silently across the water. What caught his eye, though, was not the vessel. It was what came after. A splash, he later told his nephew in hushed tones. Too loud for a dolphin, and then silence. No rescue light, no alarm. He had peered through his binoculars, but the yacht never stopped. 2 days later, Jurek walked into the local police station, hat in hand, and asked to speak to someone in charge. But his story was met with polite nods and tired eyes. "Mr. Roth is a respected man," the officer said. "A tragedy, yes, but no foul play. Perhaps you imagined—" "I imagined nothing," Jurek interrupted, tapping his temple. "I've seen storms take men and whales rise from nothing. But that night I saw the sea swallow a secret. They thanked him and sent him home." That evening, Jurek sat on the deck of his boat with a bottle of plum brandy and the same thought, looping in his mind. She did not fall. She was pushed. Back in Geneva, Damian returned to his minimalist penthouse, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling glass and silence. He poured himself a scotch, untouched by grief. Clare's jewelry had already been locked in a safe. Her clothes, donated. Her phone, destroyed. Only one thing remained, a photo on the mantel. Clare in Venice, smiling, unaware of what was to come. He stared at it for a moment, then turned it face down. The next morning, his assistant entered his office with trembling hands. "A courier left this," she said, placing a plain black envelope on his desk. Damian opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Clare, standing barefoot on a rocky beach, alive, looking directly into the camera. No note, no return address. Just her eyes, clear, cold, and impossibly alive. His hand tightened around the photo, his knuckles white. She should be dead. She was supposed to be dead. Far away, on a coastline no one cared to search, Clare sat by a fire. The embers reflected in her eyes. She cradled her belly, whispered to the child growing inside her, and began to plan the next move. Clare never saw it coming. Not at first. Before the spotlight, before the salt water and silence, she was just a girl from upstate New York with a camera in one hand and a sketchbook in the other. She believed in quiet moments, good coffee, and slow love. She worked as a junior curator at a modest art gallery in Manhattan, where the ceilings leaked and the floorboards creaked, but she felt alive there, unseen, unbothered, and free. Then, Damian Roth walked in. He was hosting a private tech showcase at the gallery, some fundraiser merging artificial intelligence and visual art. Clare remembered how the world hushed when he entered the room. Black suit, ice blue eyes. He did not look at the paintings, he looked at people, dissecting them like puzzles he already solved. But when he saw her, messy bun, paint-splattered flats, he paused. "You do not belong here," he said. Clare blinked. "Excuse me? I mean that as a compliment. You're too authentic for this crowd." She laughed. And just like that, she became a question he needed to answer. Their romance was a firestorm. Helicopter rides over Santorini, candlelit, dinners on glaciers in Iceland, secret weekends in Paris. She had never been loved so loudly, so expensively. He said she calmed him, grounded him. And she, wide-eyed and starving for significance, believed every word. 6 months later, he proposed with a diamond the size of her knuckle. He bought her a house in the hills, and slowly, she disappeared. At first it was subtle. Wear something softer. Maybe skip that gallery opening. I just want you to myself tonight. He never raised his voice. He simply reframed everything as love. When Claire left her job, it was, so you can focus on your art, but she stopped painting. When she stopped seeing her friends, he called it protecting our peace. But she was lonely. Still, she told herself it was enough. The man loved her. She just needed to love him better. Then came the night he threw her phone across the kitchen. She had asked about a strange woman at a dinner party, one who touched his arm too long. Damian said it was business, that Claire was being paranoid. She pushed back. He smiled, but his voice turned to glass. You don't want to become one of those women, Claire, the ones men regret marrying. The next morning there were roses on the counter. Apologies. A handwritten letter. She said nothing. When she found out she was pregnant, something shifted. She stared at the stick for an hour, hand over her mouth, both terrified and electric. For the first time in months, she felt full again. She thought Damian would be overjoyed. She imagined him crying, lifting her into his arms, changing into the man she once believed he was. But when she told him, he stood still, and then he turned away. No, he said softly, like a decision had been made. This changes everything. In the weeks that followed, Damian became a ghost in their home. He would leave before sunrise, return long after dark. No more dinner together, no more laughter. Just brief touches on her shoulder, like she was breakable, or in the way. Claire began keeping a journal again. Not about art, but about days. Silent, aching, identical days. She wrote about her baby. She wrote about her fears. And she wrote about the woman she used to be, wondering if she had died quietly in the corner of some penthouse, wrapped in silk sheets and loneliness. The trip to Croatia was Damian's idea. We need air, he said. Someplace quiet. No. Reporters. Claire said yes. She packed soft clothes and prenatal vitamins. She placed her journal in the bottom of her bag. She still believed, foolishly, tragically, that maybe this was the reset. That the sea would clear the fog between them, but oceans do not fix monsters, they drown them. And now, standing barefoot on a foreign shore, wind tangling her wet hair, Claire no longer needed answers. She had lived the truth, and she was ready to rewrite the ending. It arrived without a sound, no courier signature, no return address. Just a plain black envelope left on Damian Roth's marble desk the morning after a board meeting he barely remembered. The cleaning crew claimed it was not there the night before. Security footage showed nothing. The building's cameras had glitched for exactly 7 minutes between 2:03 and 2:10 a.m., a digital blind spot in a fortress designed never to blink. Damian stared at the envelope. No logo, no stamp, no name. His fingers, always steady, hesitated for a second before peeling the flap. Inside, a single photograph. No note, no explanation. Just her. Claire. Standing barefoot on a rocky beach, hair wind-blown, face shadowed, but unmistakably alive. Her arms hung at her sides. Her expression was calm, defiant, her swollen belly clearly visible beneath the tattered white dress he thought the ocean had taken. She was looking directly into the camera. No smile, just eyes that knew exactly what they were doing. Damian's breath caught in his throat. He dropped the photo. For the first time in years, the man known for calculated control reached for something, anything to steady himself. His hand gripped the edge of the desk. He blinked once, twice, as if his mind could override what his eyes had seen. She was dead. He made sure of it. A soft knock on the door pulled him from the spiral. Eva Castillo stepped in, crisp as ever. Black blazer, scarlet lipstick, not a single strand of hair out of place. Her clipboard hugged her side like armor. Damian often said she was the only person he trusted. That was not entirely true, but it was close enough. Board summary, flight updates, and the press release for the software launch, she said, her voice clinical. She noticed the photograph immediately. Her eyes lingered a beat too long. Damian saw it. You know something. Ava remained still. It looks like Claire. It is Claire. Then you have a bigger problem than delayed investors. He stepped toward her, voice low. No games, Ava. If this is you. She raised a brow. If it were me, you would be in handcuffs. Or worse. He exhaled through his nose, furious and shaken. Get me every detail. Who delivered this? When? How? I want answers, not riddles. Ava nodded once. Already on it. She turned, heels tapping away down the hallway. But as she exited, she allowed herself the faintest smile. Downstairs in the lobby, the receptionist hummed softly as she rearranged brochures. She did not notice the maintenance man wheeling out. The recycling bin. He was new, his name tag was upside down, and tucked inside the folds of his jacket was a small roll of negatives, and a second copy of the photo. Outside, rain began to fall. That night, Damian sat alone in his penthouse, blinds drawn tight. The photo was back on his desk. He stared at it for hours, replaying that final night on the yacht. The scream, the splash, the stillness. He had watched the sea long enough to be sure. Had she clung to a rock? Been rescued? Faked her own death? And why now? Why return? He looked again at her eyes in the photo. She was not just alive. She was planning something, and it was coming straight for him. The cold was the first thing Claire remembered. Not the fall, not the water swallowing her whole, just the cold, sharp, numbing, cruel. It pierced through her bones and took her breath like a thief. The ocean did not want her dead. It wanted her to suffer first. She fought to stay afloat, limbs flailing, lungs burning. Salt choked her throat. Her dress tangled around her legs like seaweed. Each second stretched into eternity. But something primal kicked in, something deeper than fear. She would not die like this. Not for him. A jagged rock broke the surface in the distance. Her arms moved without thought. Every stroke was a scream. Every inch forward was rage. She dragged her pregnant body across the current, scraping her knees on the reef, coughing, vomiting seawater, clinging to life by her fingertips. And then, blackness. She woke to firelight, warmth on her cheek, a rough blanket around her shoulders. Somewhere nearby, a kettle whistled. The air smelled of boiled herbs and something bitter. A woman sat beside her, humming softly, old, wrinkled, with eyes that had seen war and silence and winters too long to count. "Did you, Sam?" Claire murmured, her throat raw. The woman did not answer. She simply pressed a cup to Claire's lips and gestured. Claire drank. It scalded her mouth. She did not care. The man appeared next, tall and stooped, with thick arms and a weathered face like a cracked tree trunk. He said nothing, only nodded once and left the room. They did not speak her language, but they spoke survival. Their names were Mira and Eldon, locals who lived off the map in a stone cottage hidden by cliffs and pine trees. No Wi-Fi, no phone, no questions. Mira tended to Claire daily, wrapping her bruises in cloth soaked with wild herbs. Eldon chopped wood and watched the sea. Sometimes he would place fish beside the fire without a word. Sometimes he would hand her a coat when she tried to go outside barefoot. For 2 weeks, Claire said nothing about who she was. Not because she did not trust them, because she did not know who she was anymore. At night, the dreams came, sinking, screaming. Damian's voice saying, "You knew what this was." She would wake up clutching her belly. The baby kicked. A tiny, pulsing reminder. You are not alone. One evening, rain slammed against the windows, and Mira lit every candle in the kitchen. Claire stood near the fire, wrapped in one of Eldon's old coats. Her hair was still wet from washing. her skin pale but no longer hollow. She cradled her stomach. Her eyes glowed, not with fear, but with something colder. Determination. She stood in their candlelit kitchen, cradling her stomach, her wet hair clinging to her bruised face, alive, but no longer the same woman. Mira watched her quietly, then pointed to Claire's belly and smiled. Jivit. Claire nodded. Yes, life. But that was only part of it. It was not just the child growing inside her that kept her breathing. It was the memory of Damian's face, the way he had looked at her like she was disposable, the way the world had mourned her like she was a footnote, the way his empire flourished while she bled in silence. She could not erase what he had done, but she could make sure he never forgot it. When Claire finally spoke, it was to Mira, softly in broken syllables and gestures. She asked for paper, a camera, a map. Mira, wise without needing words, nodded and handed her a small notebook, a pencil, and an old Polaroid from a drawer. Claire stood on the cliff the next morning, wind howling, waves crashing. She held the Polaroid camera at arm's length, took one photo, slipped it into a black envelope she had stitched together from scrap fabric. Then she sent it away with Eldon's help into the nearest town, through a traveler Mira knew from the market. No questions asked. Back in the cottage, Claire sat by the fire once more, whispering to the baby inside her. You are going to be born into a world that thinks I am dead. She touched her stomach gently. But I am more alive than ever. 6 weeks after vanishing into the sea, Claire Whitmore walked through the crowded streets of Geneva, utterly invisible. The name on her new passport read Elena Marek, a Czech national with no known relatives. Her once golden hair was now jet black, chopped blunt at the collarbone. Dark lenses covered her eyes. Her posture had changed too, shoulders hunched, steps slower, movements deliberate. She had learned how not to be seen. In the chaos of the city, people moved past her without a glance. That was exactly what she needed. From a rented flat above a bookstore, Claire spent her days observing, studying Damian's world, tracking his schedule. She watched the security entrances at Roth Dynamics, memorized his driver's license plate, and followed Ava from cafes to late-night meetings. She cataloged everything, passwords, patterns, partners. Damian was no longer just a husband, he was a target. His company, valued at nearly $40 billion, was preparing for a global merger with an AI defense firm based in Berlin. The deal was expected to explode Roth Dynamics' stock and give Damian unchecked access to classified technology. But beneath the clean branding and clever slogans, Claire found something else. Falsified test data, buried lawsuits, and gag orders paid in silence. It was all there, if you knew where to look. Claire needed help to bring it into the light. That was when she found Marissa Vaughn. Marissa was once a rising star in investigative journalism, but she vanished from the media spotlight after a whistleblower piece she published led to her editor's suicide. She had not written for a major outlet since, but word on encrypted forums said she still took freelance work, if the truth was dangerous enough. They met in a basement cafe lit by green lamps and shadowed corners. Claire handed her a flash drive. This is real, Claire whispered. I need someone who knows what to do with it. Marissa eyed her. You do not look like someone with nothing left to lose. I have something left, Claire said. That is why I am doing this. They spoke. Little after that, no names, no stories, just facts. For 2 weeks, Marissa vanished into her own world, vetting files, following Claire's paper trail, reaching out to her own trusted sources. When she returned, she said only one thing. He's dirtier than I imagined. Claire nodded. Then we bury him with his own secrets. At night, Claire sat by her window watching the city lights flicker like pulses. She thought about the life she had almost lost. The baby that now shifted restlessly inside her, ready to arrive. The face of the man who had tried to kill her. Her rage had settled into focus now, no longer fire but ice. She did not want his money. She did not even want revenge, not in the way people spoke about it. She wanted truth, and she wanted the world to see it, because Damian had built an empire on illusion. She would bring it down with reality. One leak, one headline, one crack in the facade. The timing had to be perfect, and with the merger announcement just days away, Claire slipped a final piece of data into the shared drive and sent a message to Marissa. Let it burn. Before she was Damian Roth's assistant, Ava Castillo was something else entirely. A daughter, a sister, a survivor. Raised in a narrow apartment above a liquor store in Valencia, Ava had learned young that silence was power. Her father shouted, her mother disappeared behind locked doors, and Ava listened to everything. She became fluent in watching, reading faces, understanding lies. By the time she reached Geneva, Ava wore ambition like armor. Working at Roth Dynamics was never about admiration, it was about ascension. And Damian? He was just the elevator. It began with compliments. No one moves like you, he'd said. You see things before they happen. It moved quickly. Private dinners, champagne after board wins, then blurred lines, a hand on her lower back, a kiss in the elevator, promises whispered in shadows. She knew the rules. Damian used people. Ava just thought she could use him first. But when she told him she was pregnant, he responded with a check. No words, no conversation. Just a folded slip of paper slid across the desk like a transaction. She terminated the pregnancy. Alone. 2 days later, he acted as if she had never said a word. From that moment on, Ava's loyalty cracked into silence. She stayed. She smiled. But she began to keep secrets of her own. So when the black envelope appeared on Damian's desk, Ava's heart did not race. It slowed. She had seen Claire's bruises before, the ones no one else had noticed. She had watched the woman shrink into shadows just as she once had. When Claire finally appeared in the back booth of a dim cafe near Rue des Eaux Vives, Ava did not run. She listened. I do not need you to believe me, Claire said, her voice calm without tears. I need you to remember who you were before he trained you not to feel anything. Ava stirred her coffee. You were pregnant once, Claire added softly. And he made you feel disposable. That was the only moment Ava's hand trembled. She looked up. What are you asking me to do? Claire placed a small black flash drive on the table. You do not have to leak it, you just have to leave a few doors open. Silence stretched between them. Then Ava nodded once. It was not forgiveness, it was clarity. Back at Roth Dynamics, Ava returned to her desk as if nothing had changed. She printed Damian's speech for the merger event. She scheduled his press call. She updated security access to allow a new media liaison, named Elena Merrick, to enter the press balcony unnoticed. She erased the audit flag on Damian's server logs, just once. Then she walked into his office and handed him his itinerary. You look tired, he said almost kindly. Long week, she replied with a thin smile. He did not see the shift in her. That was his fatal flaw. He always mistook silence for submission. Ava closed the door behind her and leaned against the wall for just a second. Her eyes closed. Her breathing slowed. She was not his assistant anymore. She was the fuse. The morning of the merger broke golden and quiet. From a distance, Geneva sparkled like a jewel. Inside the Roth Dynamics convention hall, however, tension pulsed like a heartbeat beneath the luxury. Security swarmed the perimeter. Cameras were rigged from every angle. Velvet ropes guided reporters toward polished rows of white leather seats. At the center of it all stood the stage, sleek, sterile, spotlighted. Behind it, a giant digital banner pulsed in soft waves. Roth Dynamics X Neuronet Systems. The future is now. Damian Roth stood backstage, hands folded behind his back, voice rehearsing lines he had practiced 100 times. He wore a perfect navy suit. His cufflinks glinted. From a distance, he looked like power incarnate. But under the surface, something gnawed at him. Ever since the black envelope, he had not slept right. He had tightened security, doubled Ava's assignments, even scanned the building twice that morning. But he could not shake the feeling. She was near. He just could not prove it. Ava entered quietly, clipboard in hand. 5 minutes. Damian nodded, adjusting his tie in the mirror. Everything smooth? A pause. Everything's in place. He did not notice the way she avoided his eyes. 2 buildings away, atop an aging Art Deco hotel roof, Claire crouched beneath a rusted vent, eyes locked on the Roth Dynamics banner through high-powered binoculars. Her coat fluttered in the wind. One hand clutched her stomach protectively. Marissa Vaughn sat beside her, laptop open, tapping commands with surgical focus. "Upload complete," she said. 10 seconds, Claire whispered. 3 years of silence for 1 moment of truth. Marissa looked up. "You sure you want to watch it fall?" "I need to," Claire answered. "So I never forget who he really was." Inside the hall, Damian stepped onto the stage. Applause greeted him like thunder. Cameras flashed. Journalists leaned forward with pens and poised fingers. He approached the podium, confident, charismatic, rehearsed. "Today," he began, "marks a new era in innovation. Roth Dynamics and Neuronet have joined forces not only to revolutionize artificial intelligence but to build a safer, smarter world." His voice echoed cleanly off the walls, and then the screens behind him flickered. Once, twice. Then everything went black. A pause. Then, exposé, the hidden files of Roth Dynamics. Thousands of pages began flashing across the screen. Emails, internal memos, whistleblower testimonies, corrupted safety data, bribery trails, bank transfers to shell companies. Redacted lines peeled away to reveal names, Damian's name again and again. Gasps filled the room. Reporters surged forward. A man in a navy suit shouted, "Shut it down!" But it was too late. Government officials in dark suits entered from both sides of the stage, flashing badges. "Mr. Roth," one said, loud enough for the microphones to catch. "You need to come with us." Damian's face drained of color. His hands trembled under the podium lights. From the rooftop, Claire watched it unfold. Every second, every frame. Marissa leaned over and whispered, "We just made history." But Claire did not smile for the headlines. She smiled for the silence. The silence she had endured, shattered now on the public stage where Damian once reigned. She touched her belly, her voice steady and quiet. Almost there. As the agents led Damian away, flashes continued to burst like gunfire. Reporters shouted questions. "What about the safety violations? Did you falsify reports? Was your wife's death related to the cover-up?" That one made Damian freeze mid-step. He turned sharply. "What did you say?" But no one answered. They were too busy documenting his fall. Later that night, the city buzzed with news alerts. Tech CEO arrested in corporate fraud scandal. Whistleblower. Files rock global merger. In a rented flat far from the noise, Claire packed a small bag, a tiny hat, a blanket, the photo she had taken on the beach. The final phase was near. One more truth had yet to be revealed, and this time she would deliver it in person. The courthouse was packed by sunrise. Camera crews surrounded, the marble steps like vultures circling a wounded beast. Inside, the air buzzed with whispers. Business analysts, political commentators, and former Roth investors waited like spectators at a public execution. Damian Roth sat at the defense table, pale and visibly thinner, dressed in a gray suit that no longer fit quite right. Gone was the polish, the smirk, the presence. In its place sat a man unraveling thread by thread. He leaned into his lawyer. "We pin it on Ava. She had access. She altered the documents. She coordinated the leaks. Spin it." His lawyer, a polished man with steel gray hair and 2 white teeth, nodded, already preparing her cross. But Ava Castillo was not waiting to be crossed. That morning, she walked into the prosecutor's office with a thumb drive and 3 typed pages. She had no Lawyer. No demands. Just a voice recording. One that would detonate everything. In court, the prosecution called her to the stand. Ms. Castillo, the prosecutor began, can you tell the court how long you worked for Mr. Roth? 7 years, she said clearly. And during that time, were you ever asked to destroy or conceal evidence? Ava looked directly at Damian. Yes, repeatedly. A ripple of gasps. Damian gritted his teeth. And Ms. Castillo, what is this recording you submitted this morning? A pause. She pulled a pair of earbuds from her purse and handed them to the bailiff. The courtroom screen lit up. A play button appeared. The judge nodded. The audio crackled to life. Then Damian's voice. No one will miss her. She walks too close to the edge. If she falls, it's not my fault. The courtroom fell silent. Then chaos. The judge banged his gavel. Damian stood shouting, That's manipulated. It's taken out of context. The judge raised a hand. Order. Reporters scribbled. Some mouths hung open. Claire's name, long, buried beneath scandal, was suddenly on every tongue again. The prosecutor turned. Your Honor, we submit that this statement refers directly to the disappearance of Clare Whitmore, presumed dead for over 2 months. Objection, Damian's attorney roared. Speculation. Sustained, the judge said. But, noted. A murmur swept the gallery. Then the judge spoke again. Very well. The court will now hear testimony from the final witness. A door creaked open at the back of the room. Footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Whispers turned into gasps. Reporters froze mid-sentence. Even the bailiff blinked twice. Because walking down the center aisle, in a simple black dress, her chin high, her step slow but certain, was Clare Whitmore, alive. Breathing, glowing with life and fury. Damian turned toward the sound. At first he squinted, confused. Then he saw her eyes, and his knees buckled. The judge dropped his pen. Clare took the stand. Without speaking, the prosecutor stepped forward, stunned but composed. Can you state your name for the court? Clare Roth, she said, her voice steady. The crowd erupted. The judge demanded silence. Cameramen pressed against the glass windows. And where have you been since July 14th? Clare looked directly at Damian. Surviving. And you have knowledge of the crimes committed by Mr. Roth? Clare pulled a small notebook from her purse and placed it on the stand. In there is every detail, from the night he pushed me into the ocean, to the names of the investors he bribed. To keep silent, Damian's lawyer stood. Objection. This is an ambush, Your Honor. The judge raised a hand. Sit down. The gavel struck the bench. We are taking a recess. Bailiff, take the defendant into custody immediately. Damian stood frozen, as 2 officers gripped his arms. His mouth opened, but no words came. Clare stepped down from the stand and passed by him, calm, untouchable. He looked up at her, broken. She whispered only 2 words. I remember. The morning after the trial, headlines did not just scream scandal. They sang survival. Clare Whitmore lives. CEO's wife returns from the dead to expose global fraud. Roth dynamics collapses as truth unravels from the inside. I was never lost. Clare Whitmore breaks her silence. That afternoon, in a hushed, overflowing press conference, Clare stepped to the podium alone. No bodyguards, no attorneys. No designer label to hide behind. Just a long navy coat, her hands resting gently on her rounded belly. Cameras clicked in waves. Her presence stunned the room into stillness. She took a breath. My name is Clare Whitmore, she began. Some of you thought I drowned. Some of you believed my husband when he said it was an accident. And for a time, I let that belief stand. I needed the silence. I needed the darkness. She paused, her voice steady but soft. I was not just the victim of a corporate crime. I was the victim of emotional erasure, of a man who thought power meant ownership. Eyes across the room shimmered. Some women wiped tears. I do not stand here to seek pity, she said. I stand here to speak for the women who cannot. Her hand moved gently to her belly. This child will never grow up in the shadow of a lie. He will grow up knowing that truth has power, that silence is not safety, and that survival is not weakness. It is proof of what we are capable of. The room erupted into applause, but Claire did not linger. She stepped off the stage and disappeared before reporters could shout her name again. That evening, she stood at the entrance of an old, graffitied building in a quiet corner of the city. It had once been a neglected shelter, barely functioning. Claire had bought it anonymously 2 weeks prior. She stepped inside now with no fanfare, just a quiet reverence. Inside, a woman with sunken eyes looked up from behind the desk. You're her," she whispered. Claire nodded. "Not anymore." "I'm just here to help." The woman stood stunned. "What will you call it?" Claire smiled faintly. "The lighthouse." She walked through the halls, still under renovation, and entered the last room at the end. Small, warm, dimly lit. Her water broke 20 minutes later. There was no hospital, just 2 volunteers, towels, hot water, and the steady rhythm of her breath. Pain surged. Her fingers gripped the edge of the bed, and still she did not cry out. She had already been through something far worse than pain. She had come through betrayal, drowning, exile, and rebirth. This was deliverance. And when the baby finally arrived, red, wailing, whole, Claire let herself break. Tears came fast. But they were not grief. They were light. A newborn's cry echoed through the quiet room. Claire held him, eyes full of light. Outside, dawn broke. Hours later, as the world still searched for updates, Claire rested by the window, the child asleep on her chest. She whispered to him, "You saved me, you know, before you were even born." He stirred slightly. She smiled. "Promise no one will ever own your story. Not like they tried to own mine." She kissed his forehead. Outside, the sky was no longer gray. It was gold, a new beginning. A world rebuilt, not from wealth or control, but from truth, resilience, and the quiet strength of a woman who refused to stay dead.